Let me start with something simple. A large majority of long-term successful entrepreneurs say they didn't build what they built because they were smarter, faster, or more confident when they started. They built it because they cared enough to stay. Not for a week, not for a burst of motivation, but for the long stretch in between when things didn't always go smoothly. That's the part most people don't plan for. And today, that's what I wanted to talk about. Not passion as excitement, not passion as hype, but passion as fuel. The kind that keeps you showing up quietly, consistently, and intentionally, even when no one is clapping. If you're here because you're building something later in life, because you're thinking about income, retirement, stability, or freedom, this conversation is definitely for you. If you've already worked hard, raised families, held jobs, carried responsibilities, and now you're asking yourself, what do I build next? And how do I actually stick with it? For those of you who don't know me, I'm Celine. I help people who are short on retirement build income online through digital skills. Not hype, not pressure, not begging friends and family, but real repeatable systems. And what I've learned through my own journey and watching hundreds of others is this: skills build income, systems build consistency, but passion is what keeps people from quitting. Let's talk honestly for a minute. Burnout gets blamed on working too much, but that's not usually the truth. Most people aren't burned out from effort, they're burned out from misalignment. They're working hard on something that doesn't feel meaningful or doesn't reflect who they are anymore, or it doesn't move them closer to the life that they actually wanted. So even small obstacles feel heavy for them. Every delay feels personal, and every learning curve feels exhausting. And over time, motivation disappears, not because they're lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because their heart isn't connected to the outcome. Discipline can push you for a while, but discipline without passion eventually turns into resentment. Reframing passion, what it actually is. Here's where passion gets misunderstood. Passion isn't enthusiasm, it isn't excitement, it isn't waking up every day energized. Passion is attachment to the outcome. It's caring enough about the end result and that you're willing to tolerate the process. It's the difference between I should do this and I'm walking away from this. Passion is quiet, steady, and grounded. It doesn't scream, it doesn't perform, it simply keeps you in the room where things don't always go smoothly. Your audience's reality midlife context. Let's be realistic. Most of the people watching here aren't 22 experimenting with ideas. We're midlife, we're thoughtful, we're cautious for a good reason. They don't want another trend, another gamble, or another false promise. They want certainty, stability, and dignity. And passion looks different at this stage in life. It's not about proving something to others. It's about peace of mind, control over time, and knowing that you won't become a burden on your children in retirement, and also having choices. That kind of passion runs really deep and it's powerful. There was a point where I realized something had to change. Not dramatically and not overnight, but quietly. I wasn't irresponsible. I wasn't careless. Life just happened for me. And suddenly, retirement wasn't a distant idea. It was a real number with real consequences. What kept me going wasn't excitement. It was the feeling that I couldn't ignore this anymore. That's passion, not panic, not fear, but clarity. Why passion creates better decisions. Here's something people don't talk about. When you care deeply about the outcome, you make better decisions. You stop chasing shiny objects, you stop jumping from system to system, and you stop restarting every single month. You become patient. You choose learning over shortcuts, consistency over chaos, and progress over perfection. Passion slows you down in the right ways. Every successful person I've watched closely has this in common. They weren't the fastest, they weren't the loudest, they weren't always confident, but they were deeply invested. They stayed curious, they stayed teachable, and they stayed committed. Not because it was fun, but because it mattered. Breakthrough moments when passion pays off. Breakthrough rarely comes with fireworks. They come quietly. A system clicks, a skill compounds, confidence catches up, and suddenly you realize quit when it would have been easier to. That's when passion reveals its value. Passion and skills actually equal freedom. Passion alone doesn't build income. Skill does. But passion is what gets you through the learning curves, the tech overwhelm, moments of doubt periods. This is why I focus so much on skills that compound. Skills don't expire. They don't depend on trends. They give you leverage. Passion keeps you learning. Skills pay the bills. If you're building something that feels unsure, not because you don't believe in yourself, but because you want clarity and structure, that's exactly why I share the Freedom Formula Blueprint. Not as a promise and not as hype, but as a starting point. It lays out how digital income actually works step by step, so you're not guessing. You'll find it in the description below. There's no pressure, no rush. Just clarity. Here's what I want to leave with you today. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more discipline. You don't need to become someone else. You need a reason that matters enough for you, that you don't walk away when things don't always go smoothly. That is passion. Quiet, steady, unshakable. And if you have that, everything else can be learned. I'd love to know what the real reason you want to build something right now. Not the polished answer, but the honest one. Share it in the comments below. And if you want to understand how people your age are building income online in a grounded, realistic way, then check out this next video. I'll see you there.